The Court of Appeal rejects bids of all 12 activists jailed for subversion over the unsanctioned 35-plus primary. The government unveils the city's first-ever unified railway standards, aiming to cut costs while ensuring safety and quality. And the killing of Mexico's most wanted cartel boss sparks waves of violence across the country. Good evening, you're watching Cable News. I'm Quentin Yan. Hong Kong's top appeals court has thrown out bids by 12 opposition figures to overturn their convictions or reduce sentences in the city's biggest national security case, upholding lengthy jail terms for their unofficial 35-plus primary that judges again condemned as a scheme to paralyze government power. The 12 appellants were brought to West Kowloon Court in prison vans, while acquitted barrister Lawrence Lau, targeted in a separate prosecution appeal, arrived under tight security. The group, including former lawmakers Leung Kwok-hong and Lam Chok-ting, were convicted in 2024 of conspiracy to subvert state power and sentenced to between 4 years and 5 months and 7 years and 9 months in prison. The Court of Appeal today dismissed their challenges to both the convictions and sentences in full. In a strongly worded judgment, the panel endorsed the lower court's view that the 35-plus plan, which sought to capture a legislative council majority to repeatedly veto budgets, was meant as a powerful constitutional weapon to pressure the chief executive to resign. This, they wrote, met the threshold for subversion through unlawful means, even in the absence of violence. They rejected defense arguments that the plan was too far-fetched to be credible, noting that the political unrest of 2019 and 2020 made its potential success impossible to dismiss. On sentencing, the bench held that the original terms were not excessive, given what they called the defendant's shared subversive purpose. In a separate bid, prosecutors sought to overturn Law's earlier acquittal, arguing he had embraced the subversive blueprint. The court disagreed, noting that he neither signed the inked without regret declaration nor publicly backed the 5 demands. Concluding there was genuine doubt over whether Lau sought political exposure rather than to undermine the constitutional order, the judges dismissed the government's appeal, leaving him the sole defendant to walk free from the landmark case. In a sweeping overhaul of its rail-building playbook, the government has unveiled the city's first-ever unified Hong Kong railway standards, a landmark move it says will cut construction costs by up to 20% on key cross-boundary lines, while opening the door to more builders and operators. The standards, to be applied first to the Northern Link and the Hong Kong-Shenzhen Western Rail, bring together Hong Kong's existing UK and European-based rules with suitable national and overseas benchmarks, including mainland railway norms and international technical standards. Officials say the clearer unified rulebook will govern everything from design and construction to operation and maintenance, giving project teams more flexibility in choosing materials, equipment, and systems without compromising safety. Highways Department Director Tony Yao said that in the past, contractors sometimes had to import more expensive components from afar because it was unclear whether cheaper, locally available products met Hong Kong's specifications. The new framework sets out how different standards can be made compatible, expanding the range of approved options, he added. The government hopes that by lowering procurement and life cycle costs and spelling out common technical requirements, new players can compete with incumbent firms, sharpening competition along the entire railway supply chain. To speed up delivery, the department has also redeployed more than 10 staff to form a dedicated railway approval team, with an internal target to clear 90% of design submissions within deadline and to escalate unresolved issues to assistant director level if they drag on for more than 15 days. Deputy Financial Secretary Michael Wong said the government may pass laws to handle the one-foot court buyout if some owners refuse to sell their flats. He also said if over half of the owners of the intact building agree to the acquisition, the buyback price will be the same as the 7 other blocks. Jimmy Liu reports.
In the rehousing plans for residents displaced by the Taipo fire, the government offered a cash buyout of homes at the 7 damaged blocks. Flat owners have to make a decision by August 31st. At a radio program, Wang said if some owners insisted not to sell, neither current laws on compulsory sale nor land resumption can resolve the issue. He raised the possibility of passing special laws to deal with it and stressed that authorities aim to help residents and the arrangements should be consensual. The acquisition currently does not include the unscathed Wang Chi Court, but Wang said it is possible if over half of its homeowners agreed to sell. Talking on the same radio program, a Wang Chi Court resident called for answers on whether the building was safe and whether the buyout would apply to them, which she said was more fair to treat all victims by the same standard. Wang said Wang Chi Court residents can take as long as they need to reach consensus on whether to let the government buy back their flats. However, the official warned that if residents moved back into Wang Chi Court, a lot of issues would remain, such as maintenance and insurance. Jamie Liu, Cable News.
One of the world's most wanted drug lords, known as Elemental, was killed in a Mexican military raid, setting off a wave of violence across the country. Foreign governments have issued warnings to their citizens traveling there. Jimmy Liu again has the story.
In the western state of Jalisco, footage from the resort town of Puerto Vallarta showed plumes of smoke rising into the sky, with sounds of explosions reported. A fatal riot reportedly broke out in a local prison. Chaos also erupted in Guadalajara, one of the 2026 World Cup host cities, as panicked passengers in the international airport sprinted for cover. The violent events prompted several North American airlines to cancel flights. Authorities suspected that cartel members blocked roads, set fire to vehicles, and clashed with security forces to retaliate for their leader's death. Other states, including Michoacan and Guanajuato, also reported unrest. The Mexican military said the operation attempted to capture El Mencho, whose real name was Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes. However, he was wounded in a shootout and later died. The 59-year-old former police officer led a criminal network that moved cocaine, methamphetamine, fentanyl, and even migrants to the U.S. American authorities had offered a bounty of $15 million or 117 million Hong Kong dollars for his capture. The raid came as Mexico faced intensifying pressure from U.S. President Donald Trump to show results in curbing drug trafficking. Mexico said the U.S. provided intelligence support, but the operation was entirely planned and executed by Mexican special forces. Jamie Liu, Cable News.
Protests erupted at universities in Iran for the second day, as U.S. President Donald Trump is said to be curious why Iran has not yet capitulated under U.S. pressure. Anna Chen shares more.
Social media video showed scuffles between anti-regime and pro-government protesters at a university in Tehran on Sunday, where some students chanted for the return of the monarchy. As demonstrations reignite in Iran, delegations from Tehran and Washington are expected to meet for a further round of talks in Geneva on Thursday to discuss and try to make a fast deal. Reuters is reporting for the first time that Iran is offering fresh concessions on its nuclear program in return for the lifting of sanctions and recognition of its right to enrich uranium as it seeks to avert a U.S. attack. Meanwhile, U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff said President Donald Trump was curious why Iran had not yet capitulated to U.S. pressure.
Why under this sort of pressure, with the amount of sea power, naval power that we have over there, why they haven't come to us and said, we profess that we don't want a weapon, so here's what we're prepared to do, and yet it's hard to sort of get them to that place.
Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi answered in a social media post, saying that it's solely because they are Iranians. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian commented in another post that recent negotiations yielded encouraging signals, but Tehran will closely monitor U.S. actions and have made all necessary preparations for any potential scenario. Anna Chen, Cable News.
In Barcelona, Spain, the landmark Sagrada Familia has reached a new milestone in its century-long construction. A cross has been installed atop the Jesus Christ Tower, raising the basilica's height to 172.5 meters and reaffirming its status as the tallest church in the world. Jeremy Zhu tells us more.
Workers secured the giant cross with ropes. Before carefully lifting it to the summit of the Jesus Tower, the final piece was placed at the very top, marking the completion of external construction on the tallest spire. Crowds gathered to witness the historic moment. The basilica now stands at 172.5 meters, just below Montjuic Hill's 173 meters, in line with architect Antoni Gaudi's vision that human creations should not surpass nature. Tradition was observed with the raising of Catalan and Vatican flags once the tower was finished. In the coming weeks, scaffolding will be removed and interior decoration and cleaning will begin. The whole tower is scheduled for completion on June 10th this year, the centenary of Gaudi's death, with commemorative events planned.
So there will be a mass and a benediction, and the Pope is invited to come. But this visit is not yet confirmed. The mass will take place, but we are eager to receive the Pope and hope that he can come.
Construction of the Sagrada Familia began in 1882. Gaudi took over as chief architect the following year, but after his death in 1926, progress continued only intermittently. Now, 144 years later, the basilica is edging closer to completion, with the entire project expected to finish within the next decade. Jeremy Zhu, Cable News.
Spring sunshine has brought an early thaw to Harbin, one of the country's coldest and the most iconic winter destinations, forcing its world-famous ice and snow road to close just as crowds were peaking for the Spring Festival. The park, built by Guinness World Records as the world's largest ice and snow theme park, shut its gates on Saturday after several unusually warm days pushed temperatures above 10 degrees Celsius, leaving once crystalline sculptures sagging and unsafe. Organizers said the sudden heat had severely degraded key ice and snow landscapes, prompting an early end to safeguard visitors and preserve the viewing experience. Those who bought tickets for the remaining operating days are being offered full refunds, while recent ticket holders can instead visit the park's indoor attraction, which will remain open. Photos circulating online show delicate carvings blurring into slush, including a nice terracotta warrior with his facial features and armor almost erased, and other sculptures ringed with safety barriers as chunks began to crack and collapse. Harbin's outdoor ice parks normally run into late February or early March. Despite the abrupt finale, this 27th edition was still the largest Harbin ice and snow road ever built. Spanning roughly 120 hectares and consuming hundreds of thousands of cubic meters of ice and snow, it still drew more than 3 million visits over about 2 months of operation. Now let's take a look at the stock market. The Hang Seng Index surged 668 points. Top active stocks of the day: Tencent was up $16, Alibaba was up $5.10. Xiaomi was up $1.20. Trip.com was up $7.20. Foreign exchange against the Hong Kong dollar: Euro 9.21, Japanese yen 50.45. Onto the weather now, mainly cloudy, 1 or 2 light rain patches tonight and tomorrow morning. The minimum temperature will be about 20 degrees. Warm with sunny intervals during the day with a maximum temperature of around 25 degrees. Warm during the day and relatively humid in the morning and at night in the following couple of days. And that's our news tonight. I'm Quentin Yang. Thank you for watching. Good night.